Hello. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. So, I usually go live every week. Now, it's been a while. Unfortunately, last week I wasn't able to come on and go live. So, apologies for keep pushing this event forward, but it's so great to go live and see you all here today. So I would love to know who is here today. Where are you tuning in from? Welcome. And if you're watching the replay, it's great to see you and to have you here. So usually in these Beyond English Fluency sessions, I will share some different strategies to support you in your English fluency and your communication confidence. So let me know if you are watching and where are you watching from. My name is Gemma Keeling and I'm originally from the south of England, but I am currently in central Mexico. So it is currently lunchtime. Well, it's not quite lunchtime in Mexico, but it's just hit afternoon. So yeah, I am excited to share a few things with you. And the first thing I really wanted to talk about is something that I shared about recently, and that is being nervous and how you can overcome that, especially when it comes to speaking up in meetings and when it comes to presentations and any time that you might need to speak in English, so it could be in an interview. And one thing, when I work with many clients and when I speak with many of you, you always talk about that worry of being nervous. And really, when you're nervous, you tend to make mistakes in your speaking. And especially when English is not your first language, you really worry about, your accent or how do I sound? And your mind kind of gets taken over and you don't know how to explain your ideas and how you can best really articulate yourself. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today because I know that is something that everyone at some point has experienced or will experience. And it's a completely normal thing to happen. It's very normal where you are in these high pressure situations, but I know that it can also stop people from being able to showcase their full potential. And that's something that I really want to address is really how can we think about anytime you are nervous and that does happen, just really changing the way that you view that. So what are some things that you can do if you are very nervous when it comes to speaking, especially in high pressured situations, if you have to speak up in a meeting or at an interview, or if you're speaking to important stakeholders, that can be, very common situations where you feel very nervous. So have you had to maybe speak in a high pressured situation recently? Let me know if you've had to maybe step outside of your comfort zone. And how did you do? How did you feel about that situation? So let's see. And if you just tuned in, hi everybody. Let me just close that off. I don't need to hear myself twice. So let me know where you're watching from and if that's ever happened to you recently. And I'm going to share today some different ideas and strategies of how you can overcome that, especially if you feel very nervous when it comes to speaking up and high pressured situations. I know it's a very common challenge that we all face. And I always hear, I wish I wasn't so nervous, especially when I have to speak in English, or I make a lot of mistakes and I'm really self-conscious and it's just really uncomfortable. And if you have situations like that, if you've been to my lives before, you will know where I spoke about if you do have a setback, it can really impact your confidence. So maybe there was a time where you did speak up and you were really nervous and very stressed, and you were, it was not a nice situation for you. That can really set you back, which is something I've spoken about many times before. And I really wanted to share, how can you really think about when you're nervous? How can you best prepare for that? And if you do get in that situation where you aren't sure how to better express yourself, or you do get very flustered, what can you do? Because it is common for these situations to happen. And there's a few things that I wanted to share with you. And actually, being nervous can be an advantage. Because if we didn't have any nerves, then most likely it's not important to you. Usually, the stress will build up in our minds and our bodies when it's something that's very important, like a job interview. Now, a high pressure situation is because you want to perform well. You want to be your best. You want to be able to articulate and talk about your decisions and be able to talk about yourself in a confident way. So that does mean that we're going to be stressed and nervous, but it's how we can really channel that stress and those nerves in a positive way. So when you are trying to reach a high level of fluency, or if English is not your first language and you have to speak, it's an uncomfortable process. I know for me, learning other languages, it's not comfortable. And it's usually a reason why, you take classes at a beginner level. It's, oh, this is so fun. I'm learning Japanese. This is really cool. And then it gets a point where it becomes quite difficult. And I've had that experience in Spanish, in Italian, in Arabic, especially in Arabic, where I became, it was more than just learning a few words. I had to start to speak up in front of the class or in front of your colleagues. And it becomes very stressful and it becomes challenging and you get nervous. And it's a process that is really a big part of language learning and why there are some challenges that come up. So one thing though is, if there was no stress at all, one thing is it probably doesn't mean a lot to you. It's not that important. And we can use stress in a way to really drive our success in how we articulate ourselves and how we really show up. And I know for many of you, perhaps you would like to feel more confident and be able to express yourself. And maybe that might mean you're leading a team and you want to feel more confident in doing that, or you're looking to get a new job and have an interview. I know that's quite common with a lot of you that I speak with in the community. You're looking to get a new job and you're going through that interview process. It might be the first time you've ever had an interview in English and you're nervous. Of course, it's going to be a situation that's very important for you. And what I think is important to remember is how we view our nerves and our stress. And nerves often come from a desire to perform well. We want to be able to do our best. Another thing is, now for me especially, if I've ever had to do an exam, or if I've had a situation where, if I do a live class or any high pressure situation, a meeting, maybe you run workshops, you are nervous, usually because you aren't very well prepared. And that nerves, that stress, that short-term stress can actually encourage you to better prepare. We want to perform well. We want to make sure that we are best prepared. And those nerves, the night before the exam, we start preparing, or the night before you have to deliver a presentation the next morning, you will be encouraged of, oh, I really need to prepare for this. And that stress can actually be used in a positive way. Now, another thing is when it comes to being nervous, is the adrenaline that comes with that. And it's interesting if you've ever had to step on stage or if you've ever had to, speak up, you are in that situation where you have to perform. And maybe in the beginning, you're very nervous. I know the situation for me, I typically am not that nervous before. So if I have to do, a meeting or I'm speaking in any situation, before that, I'm not particularly nervous. But I find that after I get that adrenaline, that burst of energy, and it's being able to, how can I use that? Of course, I do get nervous, but it's the difference between being nervous and excited are actually the same for our brain. So it's channeling, I'm not nervous. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about this opportunity. I'm excited to be able to speak in English and practice my English. And it's just how you see it. Or I'm excited to be able to deliver this message that I have, or to showcase my skills in an interview. And really focusing on the importance of the deeper meaning will really help you to kind of move those nerves from being, stress to excitement. So I'd love to know if you've ever experienced any of that. How do you typically handle your stress and any situations where you have to speak up? I'd love to know. Let me know if you're watching the replay or if you're here with me live, if that is something that, how do you handle these stress and challenging situations? So another thing, which I find very interesting, is stress can actually improve our memory recall. And sometimes up until that moment, just before the interview or just before the meeting, there's that feeling of, I've forgotten everything. I remember going through that situation when I had to present, and I had to deliver a presentation actually in Spanish. And I delivered this presentation to a whole class. No, it was a whole high school, a Spanish high school. And I had to deliver this presentation. And just before the presentation, my brain was like, I've forgotten everything. I can't remember anything that I'm supposed to say. I'm so nervous. And during that, when I stepped on and I had to, introduce myself, I was a little bit shaky. And then everything just came to me. And there's been a lot of research around this of actually stress can help you in remembering. I did prepare before, everything was in my mind, but there was just that moment of my brain fog. Everything has left my brain. Where has it gone? And in just that right moment, it was able to come back to me. So it's interesting that stress can actually improve our memory recall and how we remember. So yeah, I don't know if you've ever had a situation like that where you are really nervous and you think, I've forgotten all of my words. And then when it comes to that interview, now I think a big part of that is practice and making sure that you are being supported. And I did practice that presentation many times with my teacher and with my friends in my classmates, and I really practiced it beforehand before stepping on. So I had it figured out, but in that moment of nerves and high stress, I thought, where is it gone? I've forgotten everything, but it did come back to me. And I think a big part of that is preparation and preparing before, and also being supported and knowing that you can practice. And I made a lot of mistakes the first time I did that. First time I presented, I did make a lot of mistakes. And even when I had that final presentation in front of the whole school, I was nervous. But I think a big thing is it made me more relatable, because everyone in the school knew that I wasn't a native Spanish speaker, and speaking in a second language is something that is quite admirable. It's not very easy to do. They knew for them to do that in English, it would be quite challenging. And I think it really makes you more relatable in being nervous and still showing up, because everybody makes mistakes, and it's just how you show up in those situations. So it doesn't look like we have many here today. I'm not, or your messages aren't coming through, which is completely fine. But I wanted to really share this with you because I know that it's a common situation where you get very nervous, which is completely normal. And I just wanted to share this mindset shift, bit of a mouthful, a mindset shift when it comes to being too nervous to speak up, and especially to speak up in a foreign language, in English, when there is a lot of pressure, when it's a professional situation where you feel very uncomfortable, very nervous. I know this happens in lots of different situations for many of the professionals that I work with. Now, I typically work with design and tech professionals, so sometimes it can also mean that you have to interview users. And some of the fear and the worry might not be about your own performance, but how you might understand the other person. If they're speaking fast-spoken English, they speak very quickly, or they might use words that you don't understand. And there are other challenges that will come up, but I really wanted to focus on you and how you can really think about your nerves when it comes to these high-pressured situations and how you can channel that to your advantage. And it does come with practice and preparation before. And one way that you might be able to practice is, instead of that, for me, that final performance when I had to step on stage or when I had to show up and speak up in a meeting, it is important to, instead of running before you walk, you want to prepare and feel comfortable. Because I have seen the situation where you aren't quite ready to deliver a presentation, you haven't really prepared as much as you've wanted to, and it can be a bit of a disaster. It can feel very chaotic and you're making a lot of mistakes. And I actually had someone reach out very recently from my live event, and we spoke. We had a call together, and she felt really inspired to actually apply for this position. And she told me recently that she had to speak up, and she had to, speak up in the meeting. And I was saying earlier how it can make you more relatable. And she shared with me that even though it was very nerve-wracking to do that, when she had to speak up, she felt so happy. She really enjoyed that challenge because she was able to, present her ideas, and she really focused on the importance of that and what it really meant to her to be able to speak up. It was really something very important to her, something that she'd wanted to do for a long time. And she did it anyway. So she had that encouragement, that support to do that. And I don't know if you're listening, but I'm really proud that you were able to do that. And that's something that I see a lot in my community. Sometimes it is, we need that belief, but sometimes it's that mindset shift of how we see different opportunities and thinking about the future rather than our past mistakes that we may have made, and even really the present, just thinking what this means to me and what it meant to really step out of our comfort zone. But I think to do that, you do need support. You do need to practice and present and have the opportunity to do that. So if you are a design or tech professional and you don't really have many opportunities to practice your speaking, or perhaps you do, you're using English all the time, but you don't get feedback, because we can't expect our colleagues to say, okay, that's not really the best or most professional way of saying that. And of course, we do receive some feedback from our colleagues, but it's not always based on our language or based on exactly how we can become better communicators, because they aren't always experts in that area, and it's not really their job to give you sure, to give you feedback on your performance, but not always as in depth as what you feel you really need. So if you are in that situation where you would like to become more confident and maybe speak more clearly and have a better vocabulary, be able to have more opportunities, or you want to step out of your comfort zone to be able to work on more international projects, then I do have the Fluent Club community. And the Fluent Club community is open for the next 24 hours. So the Fluent Club is a community, is a membership where you get support exactly like I'm talking about when it comes to speaking practice. We have different sessions every month, and it can be a really great opportunity to really practice in a safe place. Now, like I said, for me, when I was presenting and I had to present in Spanish, I was able to perform so well and step up on stage and present and share all of my ideas. And I think I did, I got a lot of, that was a really inspiring presentation. And at the time I was in my early 20s when I did that. It was quite a few years ago now, but I remember that it was such an amazing feeling. And I was just so grateful that my teachers really inspired me to do that. They encouraged me, they gave me that support. And I know how important that is then and how important that is now. It's something that I continually, that development and that support is something that is, no matter where you are in your career or how good your English is or your language skills, having that support can really mean a lot. And I know it does from my own community members. So if you are interested in learning more about that, just send me a message. You could just say Fluent, and I can share you more information about that. But I hope today sharing about when it comes to speaking and how we can really channel our nerves in a positive way, I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions about that, or if you have any upcoming presentations or interviews or situations, professional situations where you need to speak up and you want to be able to best articulate your ideas, or if, for example, you have to have an interview, how you can best explain yourself and talk about yourself in a professional way, I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions around that, let me know, and I will do my best to get back to you and support you. That's really something that I love to help you with. Whether you're part of the community or not, I would love to hear from you and share how I can, how I could best support you, and also give you any tips and strategies that could be helpful. So yeah, I wanted to share that. If you have any questions, let me know. I wanted to keep this quite short and useful for you, the different strategies. Let me know your thoughts about this strategy of really shifting how we view our stress. Let me know what you think, and also share anything that has been, sorry, my hair's in my way. And I will also love to hear any strategies or tips or something that you have found personally helpful if you get very nervous when it comes to speaking. You can share your tips and your ideas as well, and we'd love to hear them. But yeah, I really love to hear from you. I hope that you found this enjoyable. I do go live every single week. Unfortunately, I wasn't live last week, but I will be going live again next week, and I'd love to see you there. Let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, I will see you all very soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye.